everybody, welcome to Victims and Villains. We are your Marvel correspondents. I'm Alan.
I'm Josh.
And today we're going to be talking about some of the Marvel projects that we meant to talk about last week, but I was a bit under the weather. But it worked out because Marvel decided to drop a trailer today when we're recording this. So I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but I did not. But yeah, so this episode's been a long time coming. Josh and I just saw each other at New York Comic Con and really held our tongues talking about some of this stuff to save it for this show.
Yeah.
And
that was a hell of a weekend too. Like
it was.
Werewolf-by-Night came out that weekend. We saw Nick Fury on Broadway.
We did, along with Cyborg.
Along with Cyborg and some other amazing actors. And yeah, it was a heck of a weekend for sure. It
really was. It was a lot of fun. I got to see a lot of cool Marvel cosplays and did some Marvel sightseeing as well.
That's right. We went to Joe's Pizza.
Yeah. We went...
Thanks to you, because I had no idea it was like a block away. And you're like, yeah, let's just walk over here. And bam, it's awesome.
For anyone watching or listening who doesn't know what Joe's Pizza is, Joe's Pizza is where Peter Parker works at the beginning of Spider-Man 2. We went to the location. It's not the exact one that they filmed at because they've moved up the block a little bit. But the location that was where Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire worked and gets fired by Mr. Aziz for not delivering the pizzas on time.
Yeah.
We had our own pizza time. So if you want to see pictures of that, make sure to follow Victims and Villains on Instagram. We're going to be sending those over to Josh to post along with this podcast. So before we get into the bulk of the episode, and by bulk I mean the Hulk of the episode, like I said at the beginning of the show, Marvel decided to drop a trailer today for ant-man-and-the-wasp, Quantumania. And I don't think we'd be doing our job as Marvel correspondents if we did not talk about this trailer, because I love me a good trailer that uses Elton John in any capacity.
Definitely. I was not expecting a trailer today. It kind of came out of the blue. I think it was originally supposed to come out tonight with Monday Night Football, but then it leaked online, and I think they just posted it after that. But kind of a pleasant surprise and interesting to know where they're going with that. It reminded me of a lot of other films. I can't help but notice that. In fact, there's a 2022 animation film that's coming out next month that I'm trying to... Strange World, that it looks exactly like this, but without Ant-Man and animated. But it looks certainly like a funky good time.
It's weird to see an Ant-Man movie that has stakes to it. Like I'm so used to the Ant-Man movies being side adventures. I mean, you're bringing in Kang the Conqueror to this one, or one of the variations of the variants of Kang into this one. So it definitely has a little bit more weight to it. It feels like there's actually a little bit of a threat towards Scott Lang and gang. You got Bill Murray in there, which I don't know if he's going to stay in the movie before it comes out in February, but he's there for now. But yeah, I'm excited for this. It's weird. Like I can see what you're talking about with the Strange Worlds thing. It's weird that in the 90s you had Volcano and Dante's Peak being the movies that are very similar in style and story from different studios. Now Disney just seems to be doing that with themselves, with Black Panther and Avatar 2 and Strange Worlds and Quantumania. I guess they have an intern who just keeps copying and pasting things from different meetings and crossing the streams or something, but
it definitely has it's got Guardians vibes, Guardians of the Galaxy vibes, and Loki vibes for sure, with all the crazy stuff that they threw at us in that short trailer. Hope's short haircut, I believe it's comic accurate, but it looks like a really bad wig. I couldn't unsee that.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I saw a comment online. It was the manager of the Quantum Round's really going to get it from the Wasp.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a wig. I think she actually did something to her hair over quarantine, and that was her hair throughout production. So,
okay.
Bill Murray in this looks like he's wearing the same wig as Stellan Skarsgård on Andor. So,
notice that.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. February is coming up fast, so we don't have too long to wait for this.
Yeah, it's around the corner. It's not a January film, which means they have a little more faith in it than the January films. I'm interested. Of course, I'm interested. I'm definitely interested to know like what Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet has been doing all this time to like not be like, oh my God, this happened while I was down there. Like, and all the time that she's been back, they never once asked her, so was anybody else down there? Or, was it just a void? And she's like, she waits till the daughter of Ant-Man invents new tech to specifically like signal down there to be like, oh God, wait, don't do that. So we'll see what happens. I hope it's better than Ant-Man 2, because that film, while I remember it having like some laughs and giggles in it, it was so like forgettable. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the third film is kind of the make or break for a lot of these individual films for these characters. And so just the fact that Ant-Man has gotten to a third film, I think, is impressive, but we'll see if it reinvents itself like Thor Ragnarok did, or if it's kind of the last one for the foreseeable future. We'll see. Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that this is the first Marvel trilogy to have the same director throughout. Even though Peyton Reed came in late to the game on Ant-Man, he stuck out through the two sequels.
Oh, that's right. So. That's right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
But one thing I will say about this trailer is visually, it's very well done. And I have not seen anyone on the internet yet complaining about the CGI in this. So I'm hoping that Marvel has gotten past the COVID-induced making all the artists work from home issues that they've been having with the lackluster CGI, like we saw in Thor: Love and Thunder, and
we saw in She-Hulk 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. We'll talk about that then. But I think motion picture wise, I think we're over that hump now, and I think there's going to be a lot more higher quality stuff coming to the big screen for Marvel. So,
well, yeah. I mean, it's an Ant-Man film, so it has the potential to be fun. We also have the potential to see more Randall Park and Michael Pena, and they are always a highlight in the Ant-Man films. So, I'm down. I'm looking forward to February.
Yeah. I always forget that Randall Park's in these. Like, I guess it's kind of a sequel to WandaVision if he shows up then. So,
yeah.
All right. Moving on to some other Marvel news. A little bit of drama behind the scenes at Marvel. There we go. Blade has lost its director. And I want to talk about this first because it plays into the other story that I just flashed up on the screen. But yeah, Blade lost his director, so some release dates got shifted around. And I'm kind of glad they're going this route instead of getting somebody into the last second to take over whatever version of a script they have right now for Blade. Because I've been reading about some of the issues with the script, and it does not sound good at this point.
Yeah, from what's been kind of reported by some Hollywood insiders through Twitter, and then kind of vetted through a couple other people. Apparently, it's got a couple really lackluster. It's got 2 or 3 lackluster action scenes in it. Our main star of the film is very frustrated with the whole process and is not having a good time. When he's Blade, he should be having a good time. And now with the director leaving I mean, weeks before they were supposed to start shooting on this thing. Yeah, it sounds like it's a mess, and I imagine it would be. I mean, this is the first time. I'm sure Deadpool is having its own obstacles, but they've already kind of said we'll let Deadpool be R-rated. But this is the first time that the MCU is taking a beloved property of R-rated films and finding a way to redo them for the MCU. You know, everything else they've done, they really didn't have anything previously to compare to them, so they had a lot of leeway and a lot of grounds for forgiveness and grounds for their own creativity. But Blade, you know, a lot of people attribute the success of the MCU to the Blade films because they really, you know, they were huge and they were big for the young comic book genre studio films. There wasn't a lot back then, and so I imagine there's some pressure for them to not screw this up. And if the director's leaving 2 weeks or 3 weeks before shooting and the script is as bad as it sounds, I don't blame them for putting this thing on hold until they fix it.
Yeah, and this goes into my philosophy on what Marvel should be doing, and that's pushing back some of these dates so they're not as tight together, giving them a little bit more space for more pre-production stuff. That way you don't have to fix as much in post. But the Blade release date has shifted from November 3rd, 2023 to December 6th, 2024, which I believe takes the release date that was announced for Deadpool 3, which we have not had a chance to talk about on the podcast. I believe we talked about it in person in New York, but we have not talked about this on the show. What are your thoughts on Hugh Jackman's Wolverine joining the MCU in Deadpool 3?
I think it is fantastic. I think it is a great distraction. I think we were all wondering when Kevin Feige said, yes, we will allow Deadpool 3 to be an R-rated film. I think we all wondered, what kind of an R-rated film? Because there are multiple kinds of R-rated films. There's barely an R-rated because, there was one more F-bomb than allowed in a PG-13. There's levels of violence that you can do in R-rated. Ones that really push the envelope and ones that, when done in a certain way, could have probably gotten into a PG-13 film, if not for X, Y, and Z variables. And so I think we're all kind of, cautiously optimistic as to what kind of film that is going to be. But you throw Hugh Jackman's Wolverine into that mix, and suddenly you've gained all this forgiveness that you might not have had initially, and people are not only excited for another Deadpool movie, but they're, oh my God, the best Wolverine we've ever had is going to be on screen for at least one outing in the MCU. And as we've seen in previous Deadpool outings, they've covered time travel. They've covered, different multiverse things. We've had a lot of multiverse things in the MCU. So this could easily just be a one more final send-off to the old Logan as we know it. Give him an honorary bout in the MCU before they move on and cast somebody else.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with all of that. I'm excited to see the Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds dynamic on the big screen again, because the only time we got to see that was X-Men Origins. And that's probably the best part of that movie is their interactions in the first act. I was a little bit worried there for a bit because they released that video of Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds announcing the movie, but then Marvel Studios never said a word about it. Like they just kind of let it go and didn't like anything, didn't share anything. It was when they pushed back Blade that we got the official confirmation that this is coming from Marvel Studios, because they changed the release date of this as well from December 6th, 2024 to November 8th, 2024. So I'm glad to know that this isn't actually just a giant prank.
I mean, who knows? Now, granted, they released like the poster and the image for it, and it's straight up the claws of Wolverine going through Deadpool. In any other hands, I would be like, this is probably just going to be a cameo. This is probably not as big as you think it is. However, when Deadpool 1 came out, and that end credit scene was, hey, we're going to have Cable in the next one. Cable didn't end up being a cameo. He was the main freaking guy of the sequel. So when Ryan Reynolds comes out and says, hey, we're going to have Wolverine in Daredevil 3, and then releases the poster with Wolverine's claws going through the Daredevil symbol, or the Deadpool symbol, I doubt it's going to be a cameo. I think he's going to make the most of that, and I have more faith in their creative forces than I would in somebody else's. So, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and you've got Sean Levy coming in to direct this one, who's done great things with Stranger Things, and I've heard good things about his other movies with Ryan Reynolds. I haven't seen Free Guy yet, but no, I'm excited for this. Other release dates that got shifted around. Fantastic Four moves from November 2024 to February 2025. And Avengers Secret Wars moves from November 2025 to May 2026.
But see, this is what I'm talking about here. You remember, what was this? July, when they put all of those dates on the screen, and I was like, bullshit, that all of that is coming out in the next 2 years. You know, they had stuff going through, what was it? 2025 was the end date. I'm looking at one here. This was the Phase 5 slate was going through 2024, and then Phase 6 Secret Wars was the last thing on there on November 7th, 2025, and then they had all of these blank spots that have films that they just haven't announced yet. Yeah. I'm sure Deadpool 3 was one of these, but there's still a handful of other ones. And I was like, bullshit, all of this is coming out in 2 years. This is not possible.
There are rumors that with a bunch of these dates shifting around that July 2024 will be Spider-Man 4.
Interesting.
So
July 2024?
I think
they don't have an empty spot for 2024. They had a summer 2025 opening.
Oh, maybe that's it then.
Between Avengers. Right now they had 8 openings for 2025.
Well, remember the Spider-Man stuff is going to Spider-Man stuff's going to be for Sony, so that actually doesn't have to fall on Disney's schedule.
That's true. True.
And I think some of the stuff they have coming out in the summer is like TV shows as well. So hopefully we get another Spider-Man. There's rumors of Sony looking at dates now. So hopefully we'll hear something soon.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks that Blade is being pushed out. I feel like, it's not as bad as Black Adam, but I feel like that was announced so long ago. And Ali is not a young man, and I feel like every delay he's just getting a little bit older, and it's like, unless they're planning for this to be a handing of the baton type film, I just wonder how many chances we're actually going to see him as Blade before he's like, I'm just not having it anymore. So we'll see.
As long as I don't have to listen to him talk about, I've been waiting to make this movie for 18 years. Like I've had to hear about Black Adam for the last 4 months.
I know. Oh, but speaking of old guys joining the MCU, did you have this on your list of things to talk about? The Han Solo himself coming over to the MCU?
You know, I should have. I forgot about this. Harrison Ford joining the MCU in a recast for General Thunderbolt Ross.
Correct. Harrison Ford is how old? He's 80 years old currently. Yeah. Now he's still acting. He's coming out with another Indiana Jones, so it's not like he's unable to act. But he's also one that we all knew was like fighting to get out of Star Wars, whether or not it was right for the story or not. It seemed like he was done with that spectacle. I don't know how they keep bringing him back for the spectacle of Indiana Jones, but now we're throwing him into the MCU franchise. I would not be surprised if this is a one-and-done outing for him. I just can't imagine him being a reoccurring character.
I mean, they have him coming in for Captain America New World Order. And my guess is he's going to be in Thunderbolts as well in a small part. If they do Red Hulk with him, it's going to be his voice only, they'll use his likeness in CGI.
I can imagine that's where the story goes. Like it's a permanent Red Hulk thing instead of a back and forth thing. So they just have to get him to that point, and then they don't need the physical actor anymore. They just need a synthesized version of his voice and his face for the Hulk.
I just know that once Indiana Jones comes out next year and he's doing press for that and people start asking him about MCU stuff, he's going to be like, I don't care. Like, he's just going to be stoned and out of his mind.
It's going to be Star Wars all over again.
Yeah. But it's a paycheck for him and he's got to buy another plane to crash. So,
well, I just wonder, I mean, his role must be important if they recast it because I've liked what we've gotten from General Ross over the years. And his appearance in the Black Widow with his whatever's going on with his face, that was something that they were hinting at, of what's to come for his character. But, I mean, his character has never been incredibly vital to the story. And I guess in terms of the comics, he's fairly vital to the Thunderbolt story. But they must really have something planned for his character to recast him like this versus just saying he died in the snap or something like that. Because they could have easily written him out as if needed. So the fact that they recasted him, he must have a pretty vital role in those two projects he mentioned. So I'm interested.
Yeah. And I'm curious what the storyline is there because it just came out recently that Florence Pugh is signed on for 2 more projects. So I'm curious if there's any overlap with the 2 of them.
I heard 8.
Oh, I heard 2. 8 doesn't surprise me. As long as Olivia Wilde's not directing. So.
Here's 2 more films according to CBR. Where did I hear 8? I don't know what I heard 8 from. Maybe that was something else.
Yeah. But
yeah, at least 2 more films, which makes sense. And I'm sure we'll see her in a lot more things coming out. I mean, she's great. So I'm all down for more of her. Yeah, in any shape or form.
Yeah. So let's get into our main topics for tonight. Our first one being the Marvel special presentation, Werewolf-by-Night, streaming on Disney-Plus. This is a short film directed by one of my favorite film composers, Michael Giacchino. It follows a lycanthrope superhero who fights evil using the abilities given to him by a curse brought on by his bloodline. Pretty much it's about a superhero werewolf.
Yeah. Did you know about his character before this movie?
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
I had heard of him from podcasts talking about like different characters they would want to see and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Kevin Smith at one point was like, "Oh, I'd love to see Werewolf-by-Night," but they'll never be able to do that. And then it's like, "Oh, hey, they're doing Werewolf-by-Night." Like, yes. Yeah. But I've never read a Werewolf-by-Night comic book. I've probably seen it on like Comic Book Men or something like that. But I was very excited to see this, mostly because of the Michael Giacchino angle of it. And I held off on this opening day because I didn't want to watch this on my phone. I waited until I was home, had my big screen TV, sound system turned up, and watched it in all of the glorious black and white.
Yeah, I did the same, and it looked really good. And looking back, I just pulled him up on IMDb right quick. I mean, yeah, his composer credits are ridiculous. I mean, he's got 157 composer credits going all the way back to 1995's Gargoyles video game. And he also worked on Small Soldiers, which is awesome, and a lot of other stuff. But director, this is, I believe, the longest thing he's ever directed. Mm-hmm. The two things he's done before was a Star Trek short, and a Monster Challenge short in 2018. So this is a pretty good step up. I mean, this was, 51 minutes, I think, was the total runtime, something like that. I thought it was very entertaining. I went in very cold, so I did not know that the main character was, I guess, spoilers, was a werewolf. I did not know anybody on screen. I thought the one chick was a recasted Jessica Jones for a while, and that wasn't the case. I didn't know what to expect from this other than what I'd seen in the first trailer, and I thought, okay, it looks interestingly enough, and I had a good time with it. I think the black and white allowed them to push the limits with the violence a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you would rate it, or if Disney streaming things are even technically rated.
It's rated TV 14.
Okay, and so I think the black and white helped keep it 14.
Oh yeah,
considering
definitely.
Some of the violence that went down.
But even though it's black and white, it has a great use of color. Like every time they show that stone and they use that red, I was like, that's awesome. Like I love the look of this. It's a great homage to the classic Universal monster movies.
It reminded me of that black and white scene in Thor, Love and Thunder, but in long form with mostly black and white, but color coming from that rock and kind of making everything colorful around it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think part of what makes this feel so like old school is the use of practical sets. Like they're actually on a set. It's not the volume. It's not green screen. It's a room, and you have all these creatures, and you have you have all these characters and then you have this maze and this, it's an actual environment. And I think it really pays off for something small like this for them to do that. Like,
yeah,
put the effort in to make this thing feel real. And by far, this is my hottest take of the night. By far the best use of a flaming tuba in the MCU.
Of a what?
Flaming tuba.
Oh yes, I agree. Yes, of all the options we have for that category, this is the best one. Correct. I really liked it. I remember just watching this and really liking the setup. The fact that all these people were brought in because of they're known for their monster killing. They're known for their deeds and their works in this field. And hey, we're going to give you the chance to hunt a monster on the property. Attached to that monster is this very coveted stone, and only one person can have it and wield its power or whatever. And everybody in the room is like just gunning like for the chance to, yes, let's go. Let's kill this thing and let's kill each other in order to get that stone. And I'm like, all right, like I like this premise. This is simple. It's on location, like you said. And it's just cool. It was a great build-up. I think they could have made this into a feature-length film, and it would have worked. It would have given more time to to some of the other characters that didn't get a lot of screen time and some more violence. But the way they presented it in this short form was enough. And I felt like, I think there was a couple lines in there that referenced the main MCU, but for the most part, it was very standalone, and it felt good standalone. I had a really good time with it.
I mean, I think the opening shot of this is like a silhouette of the Avengers from the first film, like the first team of the Avengers. But yeah, this is what I think they should be doing on Disney Plus. Like, I would love to see more of these. I think this is a great use of that platform. I'm super jealous that they were showing this in Los Angeles on 35 millimeter film.
Oh yes.
Like, I would love to see this in a theater, but for Disney Plus, I think I prefer this format more than the 10 episodes story arc or 6 episodes story arc seasons. Like, I'd much rather more of this and less of that.
Well, it just felt very tight. It felt very well made. I could have, based on what they've done in the past, this was, I think with credits, it was like 51, 52 minutes. So I could have seen in somebody else's hands, oh, let's release this in 3 15-minute bursts, and stuff like that. And I think it would have ruined the story. So, I liked it. I liked, the Marvel universe is a vast universe of stories. And as the MCU grows, the potential for these things, especially on a platform like Disney Plus, to have these little insights into other things that you would never see on the big screen, or at least you wouldn't see now, and maybe based on their popularity that could lead into something on the big screen. I like it, and it was very well produced. It wasn't half-assed, and it gives me hope for the holiday Guardians of the Galaxy special if it's to this level of production,
Yeah, that's the next special presentation we're going to get. The irony of your dog joining us while we're talking about Werewolf-by-Midnight is not lost on me.
She just wanted to be a part of it, yeah.
So there have been some rumors about what other special presentations we might see in the near future, because I think Disney is looking at this as a hit, and I think they want to make more of them. One rumor I heard is use the special presentations to introduce the X-Men one by one and then have your team up, which I think is an interesting concept to do, because then you get your moment to shine a light on each individual character and then team them up in a movie instead of giving each one of them a feature film. I think that this would be an interesting way to do that.
Yeah, or bogging down the first X-Men film with all these origin stories for the whole team. That could be definitely a way to do it. Mm-hmm.
There have been some other murmurs on the internet about other characters outside of the X-Men who might be getting this treatment, including Silver Surfer
Mm-hmm.
and Nova.
Yeah, Nova was announced to have a movie, but that was a long time ago, and there's been nothing really like working on that for a while. So the rumor was maybe they're transforming it into something like this.
Yeah, I think Nova, like they never announced an official release date for anything Nova, but I know they hired writers or director.
Yeah.
My question for you is there any character in the MCU that we have not seen yet that you want to see get this treatment?
Yeah, I wish you would have told me that like this morning so I could have thought about it today. On the spot, I'm trying to think. Let me look at my wall here. Do you have one that you could talk about while I think about
I should have thought of this as well. I think this would be a great way to, if you can't get them back for a full movie, do these special presentations. Give us a little highlight of what's going on with Peter 2 and Peter 3 in their own respective universes.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Gosh, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I've got one for you from the MCU proper. Justin Hammer. What has Sam Rockwell's character from Iron Man 2 been up to? Because he's probably out of jail at this point.
That would be fun. I would watch that. I think I'd watch that over a feature film based around the fake Mandarin. What's his face?
Trevor.
Trevor. Yeah. I think we talked about he's coming back in some form or another in some upcoming property, but
Captain Britain, I think.
Yeah. But that would be interesting. Or maybe, maybe one of the what if storylines gets it's kind of halfway towards a feature film, so that could be fun.
Oh yeah, just do what if and get Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher in live action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do one of them
because
like that.
Didn't he open this up? Wasn't that his voice?
No, I thought it was Mr. Krabs, but evidently it was Rick D. Wasserman was the narrator.
Oh, I could have swore it was the Watcher.
That would have been cool, but no, sadly.
Okay, well, I was way off on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy this. I hope that regardless of who they choose to do more of these on, I want to see more Michael Giacchino directing. So,
You know what I would love to see? It's never going to happen. But I would love to see Patton Oswalt's X-Men Star Wars crossover from Parks and Rec done as a special presentation. I think that would be
fantastic.
Chef's kiss amazing. Yeah. So Kevin Feige, get on that. I know you aren't stretched thin enough, so get on that.
All right. I think we should start talking about the reason we gathered here tonight, and that is season 1 of the Disney Plus show She-Hulk: Attorney at Law.
Possibly only season from what
possibly. I mean, they haven't really announced seasons for anything else outside of Loki. And I think part of that's been strategical. But yeah, we've talked a little bit about this at New York Comic Con, but we tried to avoid it as much as possible because we knew we had this podcast coming up. So we've hinted at it a little bit, talking about the CGI in this before, but Josh, what were your overall thoughts on this season of She-Hulk: Attorney at Law?
Non-spoiler thoughts?
Non-spoiler.
I think I was very excited for this show in general. I like attorney shows. I like genre MCU content, and the fact that they were selling this show as kind of an Ally McBeal style attorney show featuring a superhero starring Tatiana is a fantastic actress, starring her in the middle of it all. I came into it with pretty high expectations, and I was very excited about it. I think overall the show was a mess with 2.5 really good episodes. And it's not to say that there wasn't some funny bits in throughout. But of all the MCU shows that we've had so far on the Disney Plus network through the last couple years, this, for some reason, the latest one felt like it was the most affected by outside forces, whether that was COVID, whether that was studio interference. But everything that I've heard from a supposedly 10th episode that was supposed to be a lot stronger ending, to the fact that they released these episodes in a different order than they were initially planned on releasing, to some other behind-the-scenes stuff. It just feels like the production of this show was a mess, and that bled through towards the viewing experience, because it just felt like a mess to me.
Yeah, the show is a little bit uneven. Overall, I enjoyed this as a whole. But it does feel uneven, and I can definitely see that, like, without even looking hard into it. It's like, okay, yeah, they definitely didn't release these in the same order that they were intended to. Because why would you have so-and-so cameo 2 episodes back-to-back? That just doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that with spoilers. Actually, no, he's in the marketing. Wong, like, you don't put Wong in 2 episodes back-to-back. Like, space it out a little bit. I love me some Benedict Wong, but let's space it out a bit. But I think the show's strongest when it leans into the MCU of it all. I think the strongest episodes are the ones where you have guest stars from the MCU. And I know you can't pull that off every episode, but I think those are some of my favorite episodes. And I think there's a strong story there for Jennifer Walters as well, that you don't need to rely on those. But I just feel like there are some episodes that didn't lean into the being in the MCU at all, that made the show suffer. Like, okay, why are we here? So
yeah, I think the pacing was a little bit all over the place, and that may or may not have been to the fact that they messed with the order of the episodes. The messaging was a little bit all over the place, because on one hand, it did kind of feel like you had a cameo every episode, and yet at the same time, you had the main character continually trying to tell you, hey, this is my show, and that wasn't the case. Now, if that was done on purpose, leading up to the revelations of the 9th episode, I don't think it was done successfully. But in relation to an adaptation of the comics, they did a lot of stuff in the show that they did in the comics. They made a lot of nods, a lot of fourth wall breaking, a lot of mistreatment of the character. Mm-hmm. Without getting into spoilers, I think at the end of it, I just wondered, was it worth it to dedicate so much time to some of these themes for such an empty payoff? It doesn't mean I didn't have fun watching the show. It was just, with every episode, it was just a progression of how far are we going to push this theme, and it just felt like the clock was running down, and then suddenly we were at the finale episode, and it didn't feel like there was any way that they could, put a nail in it and wrap it all up. And in my mind, they didn't. In my mind, they used a couple tricks that was kind of a way for them to wrap it up, but it felt empty, and sad for the character, and a waste of the talent in the show, because I think Tatiana Maslany is a fantastic actor, and ever since she was cast in this role, I was excited for this role, because you a lot more talent's coming over the MCU lately, but there's still ones to get excited for, and she was one of them.
Yeah,
and I do feel like she was kind of wasted in the show.
There are moments in this, though, especially there's one moment in the finale where I'm like, this casting, like, is so, like, spot on. Like, I couldn't see anyone else doing some of the things that she does in this. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing for me is I bought the chemistry between her and Bruce Banner. Like, her and Mark Ruffalo felt like family. Like, all of their interactions together worked for me, and I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah. Do you want to talk spoilers?
Yeah, let's talk spoilers. Can
we talk like chronological spoilers? Like,
sure.
Let's talk about some of the things and leave the finale to the finale.
Sure.
Okay. I agree with you. I think her the first episode was fantastic. We don't have to go episode by episode, but the first episode was one of the strongest of the series. I think I mentioned to you before that I thought it was a little bit rushed, how she suddenly was a Hulk, but that's fine. We don't have a lot of time in this show.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the tighter episodes of the show, where a lot of these episodes just kind of burned through their 20 to 30 minutes, whatever the length of the episode was, and then suddenly the episode was done. Whereas the first episode was great connections between her and Bruce, just a great, excellent premiere episode, and I really did like that. And likewise, her relationship with Charlie Cox's Daredevil, I thought, again, was a very tight episode, very good relationship, dialogue was down, and it was a very enjoyable episode. Those two episodes were probably the strongest in the series for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like the first episode of setting up the world, like the rules for She-Hulk, like explaining how she gets her abilities. I think they did a great job of that. And what her abilities are, how she's different from the Hulk or the original version of the Hulk, and not Professor Hulk that we've come to know since Endgame. Mm-hmm. And the episode with Daredevil, I think it's a shame that I watched that on my phone in my super tiny Airbnb in New York, but I think that's one of my favorite episodes of anything that Disney's done on Disney-Plus. I think the chemistry between them is also fantastic, and I think Daredevil still works in this world like he does on his Daredevil, like his former Netflix show. And I can't wait to see more of that character. And then you've got Tim Roth in here doing a different version of the Abomination, and we're picking up that thread from the Incredible Hulk. What is it? 14 years later, and seeing where this character goes, and everything they did with him made logical sense for the story, like from a legal standpoint. Like, how do you get the Abomination out of prison? That's how you do it.
Yeah. I did like his reasoning. We haven't seen Tim Roth in the MCU since the Incredible Hulk movie, and he was a dick bastard in that movie. And General Ross gave him the weapons to make that even worse. And his seeing him after so long, and his reasoning for his change and his justification almost of what happened, basically him telling it in a we watched it all go down, but him telling it as a look, I was hired by your government. I was told this was the villain. It wasn't a movie for me with this guy's name in the title. I was part of the military, told that he was a threat, and then he gets to go be an Avenger and forgiven for all of his atrocities, and I'm in here locked up. And I thought, that's pretty compelling. I really did like that. I'm not always a fan of somebody turning the villain into an opposite of what you expect them to be, but it's Tim Roth, and he did that very well. And it was interesting because I recently saw him in another horror movie earlier this year, where he's just he manipulates this girl, and he's constantly gaslighting her and constantly changing the narrative, and that played into this. But then it turned out that he wasn't trying to play a She-Hulk. He really was kind of, I've been locked up here all this time. I want a chance to, get out and rehabilitate. I've tried to rehabilitate myself, and I thought his storyline was interesting. I thought the fact that they turned him into an abomination that was 3 times taller than the Hulk was an interesting choice, because the MCU's continuation of neutering the Hulk just keeps on happening. He looked so small in this when they did a side-by-side comparison with the Abomination. I never thought they'd work so hard to make the Hulk look so tiny.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
Yeah, that was jarring to me as well, but I have hope that eventually we will see the Hulk back to his former glory. I hope that the Professor Hulk stuff goes away eventually and we get Angry Hulk again. Once Disney has the rights back to Hulk, I feel like they'll do him justice again. But in the meantime, I enjoy Mark Ruffalo showing up in this here and there, and I was surprised. Since we're in spoilers, I was surprised they delivered on the answer of where did Bruce go when he was in space in this. Mm-hmm. They didn't really give you much of an answer.
They hinted at it. Yeah,
they hinted at it. I didn't think we'd get that answer in this. So that was,
and we were told, and we'll get to the finale, but we were told in the finale we don't need the answer to this, and then we got it anyway.
Yeah.
I liked the feminism themes in this show. I did not, unlike some people think, it was overdone. I think there's a lot of douchebags in this show. But you got to remember, this isn't a show about a regular girl on the street that has to endure all this, which regular women do. But I imagine someone in the spotlight as much as She-Hulk was, and putting herself out there, would get the extra exposure to these type of guys. And so the fact that literally like every other guy that entered her space turned out to be, incel or just super douchey or just, super elitist, it wasn't too much for me. It felt like that likely would happen and does happen to female celebrities.
Yeah, and I think to a certain point, Jen, in the beginning of the show, before she has to deal with the public persona of She-Hulk, does have a valid point. Like, everything she says is valid. Like, that's what she has. Like, she has to deal with harassment on a daily basis at all different varying levels. What the irony for me watching this was the show's I don't want to say preaching because that sounds bad, but the show has this message about the world that she has to put up with, and then every comment I saw on the internet about this show was leaning into that, and I'm like, this is what they're talking about. Like, this is exactly what the show is talking about, and here it is again on the internet, and like, you don't get it. Like, and it's a shame because I think it took away from the show for me, I think, a bit. Just the people who were so negative towards this. And it's not just even this. Like, the month of August through September, there was just so much negativity for like every fandom on the internet. And it was just, I'm glad we're past that for now.
Yeah, I saw everything from She-Hulk hates men to every man in She-Hulk is a villain or a dick, and apparently no men can be good. Well, there were good men. I mean, Daredevil was good, Pug was good, Long was good. Even the Abomination was decent. Bruce was good. There was plenty of good guys, but again, she's a celebrity. She went on a dating app and put herself out there. It wasn't like a stretch to think that a bunch of douchey guys would be like, I want to conquer that mountain, and then try to take advantage of her downfall like Dennis did and Arthur and some of the other ones. And it never got to an unrealistic point for me, whereas some people were like, this show is just, it hates men. It's so... feminist, it's ridiculous. I didn't get that to that degree for me.
Yeah, it didn't get there for me. It didn't quite get there for me either. It was just, I was so tired of being on the internet and reading things about not only this, but also like, why does that elf look this way in Lord of the Rings? And
oh, I know. I know. There was something to piss off everybody. Yeah. And it all had to do with fictional things, interestingly enough. So the finale episode, before we even get to the big fourth wall break thing, there was a thing earlier in the well, first of all, the previous episode was a great episode with Daredevil, but it ends with Intelligentsia crashing the attorney awards or whatever, and straight up attempting to show She-Hulk's sex tape to the room. Now, somehow, earlier in the episode, She-Hulk pretty much destroys a parking garage, throws cars around to get at the bad guy, and yet is able to shake hands with the police and walk away. But at the end of the episode, she destroys a television screen in order to stop her sex tape from leaking to the room of people. She chases a bad guy outside of a building, and they arrest her. I don't get that. And if that was all leading up to this fourth wall break to say, oh, this is crazy, why are the writers doing this? Okay, but there's a point in the beginning of the final episode where she's in bed and she rolls over and looks at the camera and says, this isn't even about a reluctant superhero. It's just me being shat on for 8 episodes. Is this what you wanted? And I was like, no, it's not. Is this what you wanted? Because it's not great. And why they decided to ask that question in the last episode instead of halfway through the season is I don't know. I don't know why they waited so long to ask that question and then to do what she did when they could have done that halfway through and changed the show for the better.
I think there's something to say there about the double standard of the superhero life. Like when you're protecting others or saving others, like you get awarded and praised and shake the hands with the police. But when you're protecting yourself and like using your abilities for selfish reasons, no matter what she's completely justified in what she does to stop that tape from leaking. But the public perception of that, without knowing all of the details, it's seen in a different light than if she was saving a kitten from a tree.
Yeah.
And I wish the show
But it also makes her attorneys look so dumb that they couldn't figure out a way to convince a judge to be like, she was stopping her sex tape from being viewed to the world. Show a little grace,
Yeah.
But it was weird.
But I think it goes to the standard of, well, she's just a Hulk. Like, remember what her cousin did to Harlem all those years ago? That's all she is too. Like, she puts up a front, but this is who she really is. And it's what, like Bruce says, like once they see you as a monster, that's all they'll see you as. And I think there's a lot of good concepts there, and they just didn't follow through on them. And the bits and pieces are there, and to be appreciated, but they just don't deliver.
Well, and then they just have a rush couple of scenes that leads to, her showing up to the barn, and Intelligentsia is there, and Todd is somehow the leader of Intelligentsia, and Abomination is there, and Titania is there, and the Hulk is there, and everything goes crazy. And She-Hulk stops it and says, "This is ridiculous. How did it get to this point?" And does this fourth wall break where she is clever way. They come to the Disney-Plus kind of, loading screen, and she gets out of her own show and goes to Marvel Assembled to go to the Marvel lot and hunt down the writers and say, "What the hell are you doing to my show?" And this is what she's done in the comics. She's literally climbed out of a panel, grabbed a writer by the shirt and said, "What are you doing to my story?" I thought that was all brilliant. What I didn't like is that we had to sit through 8 episodes of her character getting, walked all over again and again and again for this to happen. And then it's in the last 15 minutes of the finale. And what they do to rectify things is just to say, "Oh, this thing that we've been building up to for 5 episodes, let's delete that. This thing that we've been hinting at all season, let's delete that." And then the show's over, instead of doing this in the 4th episode and changing the story so that the second half of the show could have been better than the first half. It just felt weird to do it there, and it felt lazy. And now that I know that there was a 10th episode planned, it feels like they did this because they ran out of money.
Possibly. I hadn't heard about the 10th episode until tonight, so I could also appreciate we're gonna change these storylines at the last minute, because throughout the whole show a lot of it didn't make sense. Like Titania in this show, like if she's supposed to be the main villain of the whole thing, I didn't know it. Like she shows up a few episodes here and there, and then at a wedding for reasons. And it just, like, when they started just throwing everything at the wall in the finale, it's like, okay, were they just doing all of this to confuse us and get to this point so they could do this? Which I can understand, but it's just like, okay, like, I enjoyed that 4th wall break where she breaks Disney Plus and escapes, but I just wish, I don't even know how I want to say this. I wish that it had meant more going into that. Like, I wish it wasn't just throw everything to the wall, see what sticks, and then we're going to just erase it all in the finale anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm perfectly happy we did not get Todd as a Hulk, because that looked dumb. If She-Hulk didn't look right in certain episodes, the Todd Hulk thing looked dumb. I don't need a Hulk at all. So I was fine with them deleting that.
Let's talk about the CGI, because we haven't really talked about that much. I thought it was fine most of the time. There are a few moments like, okay, that could have been better.
Across the show as general, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much that it was distracting.
Sure.
But I thought it was, for the way they did it, I thought it was decent. Like, you have her in the motion cap suit, you had a body double, standing in for the walking scenes, and they replaced the face, so that's going to look weird no matter what you do. And then they just straight up hired a guy to be the Hulk for, I think it was a guy, for the Incredible Hulk homage at the beginning of the finale.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I thought the CGI was fine. I think there are times where I could clearly see that, they rendered She-Hulk a lot for this scene versus another scene, especially during the wedding, especially during the finale when she's walking around on the Marvel lot and everything. There were times in there that I'm like, all right, she looks great here. I thought, and also in the first episode, she looks great. I think in 2 and 3 and 4, there were times where it was like, it was a little lazy. And then they even make reference to that in the finale when she's talking to the Kevin machine, and he's like, yeah, you're just too expensive, and can you actually change back off camera because our guys are already working on the next project. And then they play the Black Panther music to suggest that's where our guys are. And there was some fun commentary in that scene when she talks about how all Marvel things kind of end the same way, and everybody has daddy issues, and everything is, the villain has the same powers as the main character, and how everything goes to crazy shit at the end, and that's how all the finales are. And that is fine. That it's just most of the time when a show leans into the self criticism, they always do this. It's just because you're calling it out in your show doesn't forgive the fact that your show did this. Like, we've spent 8 episodes of this show that you presented. It doesn't make those episodes better when in the 9th episode you say, see, this was all terrible. It doesn't forgive that. It just says, yeah, you knew it was terrible, and yet you still gave it to us. So again, this is why it feels like it would have worked better if this all thing happened in the middle so that they could have had a stronger second half. But when they do this all in the finale, and then it's just click, click, bang, they're back. Everybody's getting arrested. They have a Fast and the Furious style picnic with the family. And then it's done. I was just like, oh, God. Oh, and then Daredevil drops in one last time from the sky. And then the show is done. And I'm like, oh, my God, that was fast. Holy crap. And, who knows if we'll get anything more.
Yeah. 2 of my favorite things to come out of the finale that I've seen on the internet since the finale were, one, the behind-the-scenes footage of all of the actors in motion capture suits, playing ping pong together.
I've seen that, yeah.
So you got Daredevil playing ping pong while Bruce Banner's behind him talking to the Abomination. That's just awesome to me. And then the story came out about what Kevin Feige didn't like about the finale. And his main issue with it was the Kevin design was originally they just had Kevin be a giant computer with a hat on top.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that's funny. I like the design that they did and how they incorporated the hat into the design of the creature or the robot.
Yeah.
But then they released the concept art for it and all the versions that he rejected. I'm like, wow, it really is just a computer server with a hat on top. That is hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you been watching Andor?
Yes.
At all? So I've rewatched the episodes this weekend with my mom, and I think the 4th episode is when Luthen drops off Cassian Andor to be with the team. They straight up took the CGI trifocal AI from Luthen's ship and made it Kevin Feige in She-Hulk.
Oh, did they?
It's literally the exact same thing. I was looking at it. The 3 eyes are moving and talking to him, and I'm like, that's the exact same thing, except it's floating for Kevin. It's literally the exact same thing. And seeing it so close to each other in shows that are airing at the same time, it's weird.
Reusing assets, I do it all the time. that's why we have these frames around us right now on Twitch.
Yeah.
So, do you want to see season 2 of She-Hulk?
I don't know, man. I want to see more of Tatiana Maslany in her character. I don't know if I want to see another season of She-Hulk in these hands. Okay. I mean, especially the whole. I get it. The writer's room scene was a big joke, and they were like, "Oh, what if the second season's a whole big dream?" some of the writers in that room were the actual writers of the show. And I just don't think it just wasn't clever to me. It wasn't clever of me for you to put yourselves in the show to say, we did a shitty job, so shitty that the main character had to break the fourth wall to come and scold us. That doesn't forgive the show to me. It would have been clever if you did that early on as a throwback to the comics.
Yeah.
Not to mention, the other thing I forgot to mention, these episodes, every single one of them started with a longer previously on segment, followed by the entire Marvel logo buildup. It just felt longer every episode, which made the actual episode shorter. And then by the time we got to the finale, we did get that fun, the Savage She-Hulk in the whole style of the original Hulk TV show. But at that point, I was just like, you're wasting time, you know, like you don't have any more time in this episode for fun things like this. And I just kind of wanted them to wrap it up so we could get to the actual show.
Yeah.
So do I want more of the character? Yes. Do I want more of the character in these hands? No. And I don't know what to take from the finale when she was like, am I going to be in a movie? And Kevin Feige's like, nope. I don't know what to say to that. Was that a joke? Will we see her again on the big screen? Who knows?
I mean, if we're going to trust Mark Ruffalo with his spoiling of things, we will see her as an Avenger in a movie down the line.
Well, I think in better hands, she could be great.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah. I'm very interested to see what they do with this character going forward. I would love to see her interact with other characters. I think a second season of the show could work. I think if you look back at this season and learn from it and take what works and what didn't work, I think you can really improve on the concept of the show, because the groundwork's there, and I think you could do something very fun and different with this show. But I think it just needs to be more. It doesn't need to go for the joke ending at the end for the writing. I think you can still break the fourth wall and do all of that stuff, but not have it all just be a setup for a joke.
Yeah, not to mention, like, I think like the first 2 or 3 episodes had mid-credit scenes, and then they just dropped that, not to pick it back up. That was weird.
Hey, I'm just glad they dropped Madison with a Y and 2 N's, but not where you think. Like, I did not need to see any more of her.
A lot of people really liked her.
I know. I did not. Like, that one episode was plenty for me.
Yeah, that episode was a mess, and that was a Wong right after the other Wong episode.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like that was the initial place it was supposed to be. Like, it felt like there was supposed to be an episode or 2 between those two, not to have them back to back. There's a lot of little things like that didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And then Scar, showing Hulk's son and his redesign. It's like the sins of the MCU to the father now go down to the son, because they've neutered the Hulk, and now they've neutered the son so much and gave him the weirdest hairline I could have imagined.
Do you know my headcanon for that?
No.
He's from Sakaar. Who do we know gives haircuts on Sakaar?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Stan Lee. So
yeah.
My headcanon is he just went to the barber and Stan Lee did that to him, and it's going to change in the next thing.
Yeah, so is that a Planet Hulk movie that they're teasing? Is that what that was supposed to say?
I don't know. Part of me is wondering if this next Avengers movie is just going to be all of the Avengers are taken to the quantum realm, and their sons and daughters or proteges have to take over and save the day.
Certainly feels like that. Feels like the island of misfit Avengers is going to have to save the day for a film or something. Yeah. I don't know. In terms of where I could see her popping up next, Daredevil Born Again is apparently an 18 episode season.
Yeah.
How long are those episodes? Are those Andor linked episodes?
I hope so.
are. I doubt it. I
I
seriously
hope
doubt it.
I hope so though, because I watched one. Like my wife's been rewatching, like watching Daredevil for the first time, and I caught an episode with her the other night, and I forgot how good he is in that show as Matt Murdock and Daredevil, and I forgot how good Vincent D'Onofrio is as Wilson Fisk. And the two of, like, it was the episode where they meet for the first time, and the tension, like that. Oh man, I cannot wait for that show. So give me 2-hour long episodes for that show, and I'll be happy. But I'm hoping that they do regular length shows like they did on Netflix.
Whether or not those episodes end up being, your standard 46-minute, 47-minute episodes, or these 20 to 30-minute Daredevil or Disney Plus episodes. Either way, modern programming has shown us that anything over 9-10 episodes is bound to be riddled with filler. So if they're looking for a filler episode of some kind in that 8-episode first season, I could see a She-Hulk appearance in that. I could see that being a fun, takeaway type thing. Who knows if Daredevil Born Again is around this time. If he said it's not an origin show. I hope it's not going back to the beginning and years before his appearance in She-Hulk.
From what I've heard rumors of a Mayor Fisk storyline. So.
Okay.
But.
And what Echo leading up to that storyline?
Possibly. Okay. So, I keep forgetting about Echo.
Right? I know. Me too. Me too. Overall, I probably won't watch She-Hulk again, but I did like a lot of the elements in She-Hulk. I did not get bent out of shape about the twerking. I did not get bent out of shape about the clearly douchebag male cast members in this show. That wasn't a problem for me. It just was a mess, and I felt like the character and Tatiana Maslany deserved more for their entry into the the MCU. I feel like we'll be lucky if we get to see her again, and if we do, we better make up for this, because I thought it was too messy for what it was. And we're so far away from COVID, but it felt like COVID was like the main culprit of all the shows. It felt like this one was the one that was hurt the most.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it's the latest.
One last thing I'll say about the show before we wrap this up is my biggest complaint about the Megan Thee Stallion cameo is she's just wearing the dress that Marge Simpson buys that she alters 20 times before it just disintegrates. And my co-host on You Have to Watch This podcast was watching this, and he had to Google who Megan Thee Stallion was because he had never heard of her before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see more of this character going forward. I hope we do get to see it sooner rather than later. But with that being said, the next time you and I will be getting together to talk about Marvel stuff will be in just 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks now? Yeah. About 3 weeks, probably. We'll get together and talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which puts a pin into Marvel's Phase 4. And I'm planning on doing a thing, probably not for the Black Panther episode, but after it or leading up to it, where I would like to rank all of the films of Phase 4 if you're down for that.
Why just the films?
Because the TV show, the shows are such a different beast, and we could probably do the shows too if we wanted to. But I think keeping
a part of it.
Yeah. I know. I think keeping them separate from each other, ranking wise, is easier. But if you want to rank the shows too, I don't know if I'm going to go back and rewatch the shows. I think that's the main reason I was saying the movies. But because I do want to go back and rewatch Black Panther. We could just
stick it to the movie. Movies. That's fine. I'd be interested in doing that. I feel like when Black Panther hits, I I don't feel like it's gonna feel the end of Phase 4. I feel like it's gonna be like, we're back to the MCU we've been missing for years.
And then we get the epilogue that is the holiday special.
Yeah. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see how it's gonna do. I know it's not Marvel related, but I went to see Black Adam, and we could talk all day about the issues that the DC EU or the DC studio films or whatever are having, but that film is apparently the biggest opening weekend of any Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie ever, and it's in the 60s and the 60 millions, and I just can't imagine Black Panther opening to anything under 120. Like, it will blow me away if it's even close to 100 million, opening weekend domestic. Like, that thing is going to just destroy everything in its path.
It really is. I cannot wait.
Although I read an article suggesting that it's not going to do as good as the first one, or it's not going to do well. And I'm like, I think that's just, I just don't see it. I feel like the reaction to the trailers have been monumental.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Panther, and not to be stereotypical at all, but Black Panther brought a section of the viewing audience to the MCU that didn't normally show up opening weekend. I think it brought unity to the viewing audience. It brought inclusion. It brought a lot more people to the table, and just to say, hey, if you give them a strong character, they'll come. If you build the field and they'll come play. It's always the thing. You give people what they want and they'll come out to see it. And I don't think that's going to be any different with the second Black Panther, just because Chadwick Boseman sadly passed. I think it'll unite people just as the first one did.
I think if anything, it's going to unite people more, because I think I think a lot of people are looking at this as a moment to pay tribute to him, not only for Black Panther, but for everything else that he did in his short career. But
narratively, I think this will be the biggest challenge of Ryan Coogler's career, because I cannot imagine another narrative obstacle than this, to not only come up with a sequel to Black Panther, but to pay the right amount of tribute both to the character of Black Panther and to the actor of Chadwick Boseman. And I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen enough of that in the trailers to say they're going to do it right. One funeral scene in the street isn't enough to pay tribute. And so I am so anxious for this film. I can't wait. And I think it's going to be great. I can't imagine it being terrible. I bet if any film had Kevin Feige's attention, it was this film, because of the potential to both fuck over the MCU and to propel it into Phase 5. So I can't wait. I think it's going to be great, and I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Yeah, and I may be seeing this in 4DX.
Of course.
Usually I see it in ScreenX. I might be splurging and go. Devin's in town from London that week, so I may be taking him to see it in 4DX.
So how far is the 4DX theater that you go to from the Winchester Alamo?
The ScreenX theater that I go to is only about 30 minutes from the Alamo.
Okay.
The 4DX theater that I'll be going to is probably about an hour and 15 minutes away.
Well, even ScreenX would be cool. I'm fairly certain that I'm going to be at the film festival that we're doing next year, and if there's a movie there that justifies a ScreenX viewing, I might make the trip to experience that, because you keep talking it up, and I keep on wanting to see it.
So. I will join you if that's the case. I will drive us, because you'll probably either be Ubering or I'll just be driving you around anyway.
That's true.
But
all right,
I think that does it for our She-Hulk, Werewolf-by-Night, and other Marvels episode. Josh, where can people find you?
Out there, the internet. fiercelit or fierceliterature.com. My socials are connected to the website. I have 0 shows coming up for the rest of the year. However, my calendar is filling up immensely for 2023. Lots of shows coming, and I have some work cut out for me. So I won't be around in person for a while, but you can catch me here, and you can catch me with the Nerf Herders Assemble podcast for little peeks inside what I'm doing. What about you?
People can find me on my podcast, You Have to Watch This Podcast, where I make my friends watch a movie that they've never seen before for the first time. This week is my pick, and it's also a Marvel film, and I use that term lightly. I'm having the guys watch Morbius for the first time. So
Alan.
I told them.
What happened to Blade? You're making them watch Morbius instead of experiencing Blade? It's
Halloween. I wanted to make them watch the scariest movie I've seen this year. Scary in the terms of how did this get made?
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah,
that's a good question.
So I have to go watch that now. So until next time, for Victims and Villains, I'm Alan.
I'm Josh.
And in the words of Dr. Fraser Crane, good mental health.